These are all related to the major issues that are related to the economy. So we are going to discuss about these issues. This week we have seen some interesting development, but at the same time, uh, the next week we can surely expect many more uh, areas to discuss, especially the budget will be presented on the first uh, February. So therefore, we will take more number of issues next time. This time, we have taken some of the issues uh, which are seen in the development. So let us start our discussion without any delay. So some interesting topics that are in the lineup. We will discuss those issues. So the first issue that we are going to cover is about the US Federal Reserve's policy. This is in the discussion, and the US Federal Reserve's meeting was there. And as a result of this, you can see that across the world, and especially the equity market is there is a you know uh, you can see there is a declining in the Sensex, and the Sensex or any other country's index has not performed well in the last 1 week, and this is largely because of the fact that U.S. Federal Reserve has announced that it will increase the interest rate by the end of March. Considering the fact that inflation has gone up in the economy, and the more liquidity is already in the system, so it's time to readjust that. And as a result of that, the the Fed has indicated that it is going to tighten the liquidity. And this tightening of the liquidity is going to impact not only India, but also to other countries as well. So we will discuss. This is the reason why we discuss this particular step. You have seen that in the prelims question also, such question has been asked about the step of U.S. Federal Reserve. You have also seen the similar kind of question being asked in the mains examination also. So therefore, it is important for us to discuss those issues, and we need to understand the impact of the US Federal Reserve on the liquidity liquidity availability across the world. And of course, we will look at its impact on Indian economy. So let us start our discussion in this context. So what the in the recent meeting, in the latest meeting that has been carried out in the last week, the Federal Reserve has indicated that it is going to reduce, or it is going to hike the interest rate after the March. And the objective of this hike is to absorb the surplus liquidity available in the market, okay, which is causing a rise in inflation rate. So this is what it is trying to address the issue. This is what it is going to do. This is the announcement. It has been done by the Federal Reserve. Now, here it is important to understand the relation between the hike interest rate and the money supply. Okay, what is the relationship between the interest rate and money supply? This relationship needs to be understood here. All right, and also needs to understand, with this we need to understand the inflation. These are the relations that we need to establish. So if you follow, and the monetary policy, in the monetary policy we have seen that if RBI reduces the interest rate, if the interest rate is less, then the cost of loan is cheaper. When the cost of loan is cheaper, if the cost of loan is cheaper, in that case the demand for money or demand for loan gets increased. Demand for loan gets increased in the economy, and when the demand for loan gets increased in the economy, money supply gets increased in the economy. As a result, when the money supply increases in the economy, so everyone has a more money. So as a result, the demand increases in the economy. Overall aggregate demand in the economy increases. That results into the inflation. So higher the demand, this higher demand causes the higher rate of inflation in the economy. So that is a kind of situation occurs. Okay, so if the interest rate increases, as a result, the money supply gets increased, and money supply gets increased, inflation gets increased. That is a kind of relationship that we have seen. And the inverse is the vice versa is the relationship. When the interest rate is decreased, you will see the cost of loan is when the interest rate gets increased, the cost of loan become dear, and the demand for loan will decrease. So demand for loan decreases, the money supply decreases, and inflation decreases. That is a kind of situation that occurs. That is the relationship between the interest rate, money supply, and the inflation. All right. So what is happening at this point of time? At this point of time, the interest rate is at historical low level. In fact, it has touched to almost zero in US, and similar is the suit that you can has been followed by the various central banks across the world. So currently, what has happened in the market, that the money, a lot of money has been deployed in the market, so there is a excess liquidity supply is in the market. As a result, inflation is continuously rising, especially in US. If you look at the inflation has gone up to 7.7%, which is quite high, because if we have already seen the relationship between the economic growth and inflation. If there is a higher economic growth, the ability of the economy to absorb the inflation is also higher. All right. So in any circumstances, the economic growth must exceed the inflation rate. So that is what it is required at this point of time. But what has happened? The economic growth in US is approximately in the range of last year. It is in the range of 6 to 6.5%, whereas inflation has gone up to 7.6% to 7.7%. So that is something which will create negative impact, because the inflation will eat the benefit or the economic growth. And that's why there is a demand from the experts that the Federal Reserve needs to take action to control the inflation in the economy. As a result, the Federal Reserve has made an indication that it will increase the interest rate after the March, and there is all likelihood that there may be 4 increase of interest rate in the year 2022 itself. All right. So once the interest rate gets increased, what will happen? The cost of loan will decrease. If the cost of loan the cost of loan will increase, it will be dear money policy. So cost of loan will increase. And if the cost of loan will increase, so less number of people will be purchasing the loan, money supply will decrease in the market, and that will result into controlling the inflation. We have seen the inflation has a many impact on the various factors of the macroeconomy. We have seen its impact on demand, its impact on the currency value, its impact on the production, its impact on taxes, its impact on the investment, saving, and every other things. So therefore, it is important to control the inflation. And in fact, in India, the central bank has a single most objective is to control the inflation. Similar is true with the US Federal Reserve. So it has the objective to control the inflation as well. So in order to do that, if it takes the step which is known as a dear money policy, under which if it increases the interest rate, that may control the inflation in the economy. And in order to achieve that, the Federal Reserve has indicated that it will increase the interest rate. Now, if the interest rate is increased, how it is going to affect the equity market? When I say equity market of US and also the equity market of other countries. Now, what happens once the interest rate increases? The money becomes dearer and the money supply will reduce. So people will not purchase the loan in order to make investment. As a result, rather than they would like to keep the money with themselves, all right, so they will withdraw the investment. So investment in equity market goes down. Investment in equity market goes down. Equity market means the share market. It goes down. If the investment in equity market goes down, the result of it can be seen that there is a crash in the equity market, or there is Sensex going down, or the Dow Jones, or any index is going down, because Sensex represents the availability of the total money in the market. So once the money is absorbed from the market, once the money is withdrawn from the market, less amount of money will be in the market. So therefore, there is a fall of the index. All right. This is what we have witnessed in the last 1 week, that there is a fall in the indexes of all the countries. Okay. All the major indexes have witnessed the fall, whether it is Sensex, whether it is Dow Jones, Nasdaq, anyone. So this is how it happens. So it happens in US. Similar things will happen in other countries as well, because the foreign institutional investors will not get the money at a cheaper rate in US. As a result, they will not be able to. They have started withdrawing the money from the developing countries, and the result of it can be seen in the reducing or declining of the Sensex, or fall of the Sensex, or fall of any equity market in the world. This is how it is related to. So therefore, any decision which is taken by the Federal Reserve is important for every other country. Now, what are the steps which have been which will be taken by the Federal Reserve? So steps one of the step would be the tightening the global liquidity. Means what? The liquidity, the money or the currency, the dollar which is available in the world. So they will do the tightening of the liquidity. Means what? The dollar is not available at a cheaper rate. So therefore, every IFIs will withdraw the money from other countries that they have invested, and they will they will deposit it in their country, and they will withdraw from other countries because it is not easily available to you. Okay. So tightening the global liquidity. So result of it can be seen that there is an outflow of dollar, outflow of dollar or outflow of FIIs from our country to US. Got that point? Once the outflow of FIIs are happening from our country to other country, so what will be its impact on India? Okay, so India is facing, there is an outflow of FIIs from our country. As a result, its impact can be seen in the market. So Sensex is going down, Sensex going down. This will also have implication on other factors. Once the outflow of dollars start happening from our country, in that case, it will also affect the currency depreciation. This may cause currency depreciation in the country. So there is a fear of currency depreciation. All right, this is how it happens. It has also announced that it will aggressively increase the interest rate, and in fact, it has indicated that it will increase four interest rate hike in the in the calendar year 2022 itself. It will also stop the net asset purchase in the early March, and you can also tell it will adopt the policy of taper tantrum. So what is taper tantrum? The taper tantrum, withdrawing of the bond buying. Okay, so the government securities which they were buying, so withdrawal of securities buying by the Fed. So withdrawal of the securities by Federal Reserve. In fact, during the coronavirus, the Federal Reserve used to purchase the securities to the tune of $120 billion per month. So as a result, it was injecting the liquidity to the tune of $120 billion every month in the market, and that's how more liquidity came into the market. All right. Now, all these steps are going to affect the market. For example, the concept of taper tantrum. So if US Federal Reserve if it withdraws to purchase the securities from the market, in that case, what will happen? So we have seen under the open market operation. Okay, under the open market operation, the RBI purchase the securities. Under the open market operation, RBI purchases the securities from the market, and thereby injecting liquidity in the market. It purchases the bond, and liquidity goes to where? The liquidity goes to the market. When the more liquidity goes to the market, the more money available with the banks. And if more money available with the banks, they reduce the interest rate. The demand for money gets increased. All right. Demand for money gets increased, or you can say the money supply gets increased. And if the money supply gets increased, the result of it can be seen in the case of inflation. Okay. So inflation will also increase. Of course, this helps the economic growth. So the objective of the Reserve Bank here, the similar is the case with the US also. So RBI is creating more demand for the bonds, and therefore injecting more liquidity so that the money supply remains higher in the economy in order to target the economic growth. The objective was to support the economic growth, but its byproduct is in the form of inflation. Similarly, if the RBI sells the securities in the market, or it not buys the securities in the market, in that case, if it stops buying securities from the market, in that case, less liquidity will be injected in the market. So money supply will automatically reduce. All right. Similar step, if it is taken by the US Federal Reserve, this is known as the taper tantrum. Okay, in a taper tantrum, this situation, when it withdraws buying securities from the market. All right. So what happened as a result of this? Once there is the money supply will increase. But at the same time, what happens as a result of this? When RBI purchases securities from the market, from the open market, what happens as a result of demand for government securities increases? The second impact you can see in the debt market. So demand for securities or government securities, the demand for government securities increases, and once the government securities demand increases, so demand for securities increases, the price of the securities, okay, the bond price gets increased, and if the bond price gets increased, the bond yield gets decreased. There is an inverse relationship between the bond price and bond yield. All right. The similar kind of things used to be done by the US. US used to buy the government securities to the tune of $120 billion. So once it buys the government securities, the demand for government securities were very high. All right. Once the demand for government securities were high, all right, in that case, the bond price also increased. Once the bond price increased, the bond yield was very low. So the government was able to get the loan or borrowing from the market at a cheaper rate. That is what. So it's an interest rate at which the government gets the money from the market. All right. So that is a bond yield. Now we have seen this kind of relationship. Now what the US or what happens under the taper tantrum? Under the taper tantrum, the government or a US Federal Reserve will withdraw purchasing the securities. So if it doesn't purchase the securities, in that case, the demand for securities will decrease. Once the demand for securities gets decreased, the bond price will decrease. And there is an inverse relationship between the bond price and the bond yield. So bond yield will increase. Okay. Whenever the bond yield increase, it doesn't benefit to the investors. It is not beneficial for the government also, because the government will have to borrow the money at a higher interest rate. It means the government will have to borrow the money at a higher interest rate. Right. Now you can, if you follow closely what is happening at the macroeconomic world, you will see at this point of time, since the taper tantrum has been started by US way back in October. So as a result, they have stopped purchasing the government securities. The demand for government securities has reduced. As a result, the bond price has also come down, and the bond yield, which were hovering in the range of 1.3 to 1.4 during the coronavirus, has gone up to 1.85 in this week. All right. So that is a kind of situation that you can see. So it suggests what? It suggests that the government will get the money at a higher interest rate. If it gets the money at a higher interest rate, it will not be willing to buy or borrow the money. That is what it reflects of that is what it reflects because of the policy of the taper tantrum. So all these policies, so this is the reason you can see in India, once the demand for the government securities demand for government securities gets decreased. As a result, the bond price got decreased and bond yield got increased, and that's why the FIIs are moving from our country to their own country. All right, this is what happens. So all the steps that have been indicated to be taken by the Federal Reserve has implication on the various factors in the economy. All right, so let us try to understand how it will affect. So as part of the global financial market, so how it will affect the global financial market, I told you, the pulling out of stocks, the money, the people which or the investors which were putting money during the coronavirus, and due to which the stock market seen its highest level. So there was a huge growth in the stock market. You will see that growth will recede in the next subsequent month. In fact, it has already seen that MSCI World Equity Index is already down by 7% since the beginning of this year. All right. And that has been faced across the world, whether it is India or any other market. All the market have seen that the investors have pulled out the money from the stocks. That is one you can see. So there will be, in the next few months, we will see there is a correction of the stocks in the stock market. All right. So that is happening with India also. The bond market, how it will affect the bond market? I told you that the bond market, so demand for bond will decrease. So once the Fed will increase the interest rate, interest rate is increased. If the interest rate is increased, the money available, okay, less money will be available. If the less money available, so therefore, the demand for bond will go down. So they will reduce the demand for bond will go down. If the demand for bond will go down, as a result of this, the bond price gets increased, and if the bond price gets increased, the bond yield gets increased, and that is how it can be seen. All right. So this question was already asked in the examination as well. So that is what happens. The bond market will see a turbulent phase, and as a result, the demand for the bond will decrease across the world. It has happened in US, where the bond yield has increased to 1.87%, which is highest in 36 months. All right, which is highest in past few months. So that is something you can see. The bond market will start seeing the reverse of the investment. I told you the sovereign bond yields that will increase, and as a result of this, the government will stop borrowing from the market. And if it borrows, then it will increase the cost of borrowing for the government. Let's say the government, there are many government where the money will not be available. In that case, if it requires to borrow money from the market, in that case, if it will have to borrow, then they will be able to borrow at a higher interest rate because the bond yield has increased. Reallocation of funds. So the reallocation of funds started happening from what will happen once the investors have a less amount of money, then they would like to make investment. They would like to done away with the risky investment, and they will keep their money with themselves and put into the market where there are less risks. So when it comes to the developing countries market, so the developing countries market are the risky market. All right, because the money is borrowed, the macroeconomic conditions are not so good, the fiscal deficit gets increased, and there are many other factors. The size of the economy also matters. So these are risky. So therefore, what will happen? The flow of funds. So the global flow of fund will be towards the more secure investment. So more flow of fund will be towards the US securities rather than to the developing countries. So the money will be withdrawn from developing countries and they will put the money into the US market. All right. And at the same time, you will see the other sort of investment that they make, whether it is equity market, whether it is a cryptocurrencies and any other market, they will start withdrawing the money, and the result of it can be seen that the cryptocurrencies have seen huge correction in the market. All right, so that is what you can see when it comes to impact. Of course, it is a weakening of currency, so it will weaken the currency of the developing economies. It will not weaken the currency of the dollar. In fact, it happens opposite. It will cause appreciation of dollar in international market, whereas it will cause depreciation of the local currency. So what happens during the coronavirus time? The Federal Reserve printed huge amount of money or dollar, and as a result, it supplied the dollar. The dollar went to every countries. As a result, the dollar gets depreciated. Now, once the dollar is being absorbed by Federal Reserve, so availability of dollar in India, let's say in India, will reduce because there is a FII. Once the FII are withdrawing the money from the market, so as a result, what will happen? The availability of dollar, okay, availability of dollar will reduce, and once the availability of dollar gets reduced, then the currency will depreciate. So Indian currency or the other currency will depreciate, whereas the dollar will see its appreciation. All right. So the developing countries currency will see the depreciation, and that is what the what will introduce the so much volatility in the market. Okay. Taper tantrum, I told you, with the gradual introduction of taper tantrum, that is withdrawing of the withdrawing of the purchasing of government securities will lead to the reduction in the demand for the government securities, causing a rise in the bond prices and decrease causing a decreasing in the bond price. As a result, the bond yield will increase. That is how it is going to impact the market. So if any step is taken by the Federal Reserve, it has the ability to affect the global financial market. No country can escape from the impact of the Federal Reserve, and India is no exception to that. All right. So similar kind of impact you can see in India's context as well. So whether it is about the stock market, the performance of stock market has gone down in the last 1 week. The bond market, India's bond, the government securities, okay, they have also mm, uh, that has also bond yield has also gone up. The similar step has been taken by the RBI also. RBI has stopped purchasing the government securities from the market. All right. So demand for bond has gone down. As a result, the bond price has gone down and the bond yield has gone up, and that has gone up to in the range of 6.6 to 6.8%. All right. So that is the kind of situation that you can see with India. All right. So this is the relationship. Now, in this situation, when India is also facing the similar kind of situation, what are the steps that the government should take in order to reduce the volatility in the market, or in order to uh, minimize the impact on macroeconomic factors of productivity in the economy? So in order to do so, the government, along with RBI, needs to take certain steps. What are those steps? Now it's time to bank on the domestic institutional investors, or it's time to bank on the retail investors. In fact, in the uh, last few uh, last 2 years, we have seen that the retail investors are actively participating in the share market. So, and now the more avenues should be provided to the people to make investment in the securities market as well as in the share market. They are already participating in the share market, so it's time to move on to ensure their participation in the debt in the debt market or securities market. And that's why the government of India has recently taken the step under which it is allowing the retail investors to participate or to buy the government securities directly from the government in the primary market. So what are the steps? You can see some of the steps already been taken by the government. What are other steps that need to take care? So one, that is, there is a need to support the domestic investors so that they can participate in the equity market. We should follow for some more time the quantitative easing policy, so that at least it remains less volatile in the country. If you follow the India's inflation rate, India is able to control its inflation rate. That is still in the range. We can still manage. It is in the manageable rate. So it is below 6% at this point of time. So therefore, India can afford to pursue the policy of quantitative easing for quite a few more time, or quite a few more quarter. So support must be provided by RBI to ensure that enough liquidity remains in the market so that they can keep investing in the market. All right. Similarly, RBI also need to act fast, and especially there has been a lot of demand. In the last 2 weeks, we have already discussed about the inclusion of the government securities in the global bond index. We have seen the various benefits of that. It is expected that if the government securities are included in the global bond index, then it will be able to, the India will be able to get at least $40 billion every year from the FIIs. So in order to get the money from FIIs, foreign institutional investors, the process for inclusion of the government securities in global bond index must be smoothened, must be fastened. All right. Only then more investment can be seen in the government bonds. If the more money comes in the government bonds, demand for government bonds increases. If we demand for government bonds increases, and if the demand for government bonds increases, the bond price will increase, and if the bond price increase, then the bond yield will increase. Bond yield will decrease, and this is the beneficial situation for both the investors and the government. All right, so this is what the government needs. We have already discussed about the global bond index two times. I don't think that I need to discuss it today also. So if you have not seen those videos, please go back to see that video where I have discussed about the global bond index and its benefits. All right. So we need to speed up the process to be included in the global bond index, because it can attract, it can help the country to receive $40 billion annually, and at least $250 billion in the next quarter. And we have a huge potential. We have already seen that when it comes to the participation of FIIs in the market, in the debt market, their participation is as low as 1.9% of the total demand. Okay, that is something the lowest among the major developing countries. If you look at Brazil, in Brazil it is 44%. Similar is the story with other countries such as China and Indonesia. So we should also look at to tap these opportunities to get the money, so that the demand for government bond increases, the money is available in the market. All right, so this is the right step that we can take. At the same time, the retail participation is required. So retail must be more avenues must be provided to the retail investors to make investment in the debt market, whether it is about InvITs or REITs. Such investment avenues must be provided. Recently, the government has also taken the step to purchase the government securities directly in the primary market. Such process must be smoothened, so that the more money inflows in the debt market. This can be understood from the fact that in the in the share market, recently it is the retail which has brought the money in the form of systematic investment plan, and that is something which is holding up the market at right now. Right, despite the outflow of money to the tune of more than 1 lakh crore rupees from India, yet the market or the equity market able to perform, able to sustain. That is largely because of the retail participation in the equity market. Now it's time to ensure the retail participation in the debt market also, so that the money can be channelized, the retail investors' money can be channelized more properly in the debt market. And there is a huge potential for mutual fund agencies, pension fund agencies, uh, and the and the insurance companies in the country. They have made a huge profit during the coronavirus, so those money, if it is provided, then the money can be deployed in the market more safely. All right. In case of increasing volatility, of course, when the forex reserve, which we have built over the few years, it has gone up to $642 billion, and last week it was reduced to $634 billion. So if it has reduced to it has gone up to $634 billion, that is something which we have built in the last 2 years. So we should utilize in order to control the volatility in the exchange market, so depreciation of the currency. So RBI should make adequate intervention in the market to control the currency price. All right. So that is what the country needs to take a step in such volatile circumstances. All right. With this, of course, the government, along with RBI, can able to control the situation in India's favor. So that is what it has been suggested. So there will be some impact, but then there are avenues as well, because in India we have not the similar kind of situation what you can see in the US. In US, inflation rate is very high, but when it comes to India, it is still under the manageable situation. So that's why we can afford to go, we can afford to continue the policies for a fairly long period of time, and at least for 2 more quarters. All right. So this is what we have understood from the first issue, that is US federal policy tightens global liquidity. All right. This is what the impact, this is what the step, this is what the impact, and this is how we can control the impact of it on India. Anybody has a doubt with respect to the discussion? Any part of the discussion, if you are not able to understand, you can please raise. One who has already participated in the classroom, they will be able to understand because we have discussed it quite a few times. One who is regularly attending this current affairs program, they will also understand. But if anyone who is appearing this for the first time, you can ask the question. I will explain the relationship once again. Is it clear to everyone? What are the causes of currency depreciation? Krishna is asking about. Yes, there are multiple impact of the currency depreciation. Okay, let us see. So there are multiple impact of currency depreciation at various levels. So currency depreciation is asking about the currency depreciation. Krishna, do you understand the meaning of depreciation? What does the currency depreciation mean? So let's say the value of $1 is 60 rupees today. If the value of $1 becomes 90 rupees today, tomorrow, that is known as a currency depreciation, right? And if the value of dollar goes to, let's say, 30 rupees, in that case, it is known as a currency appreciation. Means our currency has appreciated. Let's keep it in this in this way, that in order to fight with one US army, earlier you were required 60 Indian armies, but now in order to fight with one US army, you are required 90 Indian armies. So who has weakened? Who are the weaker? It is the Indian who are weaker. All right. So Indian currency has weakened. So if the Indian currency has weakened, means that it is a currency depreciation situation. All right. If it has become stronger, it's a currency appreciation. All right. Now, once the currency depreciation happens, it has an impact on the export. Okay. So any economies will achieve export competitiveness. Export competitiveness. And due to export competitiveness, export may increase. Export may increase. All right. Now, what has its impact on import? Generally, the import will decrease because import become costly. We'll have to pay more money. Let's say I am purchasing one shirt from Biden. All right. So earlier I used to pay 60 rupees. Now I will have to pay how much? 90 rupees. So it become costly for me. So import become costly. So therefore import may reduce. Import may reduce. All right, this is what happens. And if such situation occurs, then export gets increased or import may decrease, import may reduce. Then the our trade, we will have what? When we export more and we import less, then we will have a trade surplus. And if there is a trade surplus, then the current account surplus. This may lead to a situation of current account surplus. All right. But this is not true for a country like India? This is true. This relationship is true for a country like China or for a country which is export-oriented economy, because they export more, they import less. So trade surplus will increase and therefore current account surplus situation occur. For a country like India, this will have a different impact. How? It will cause, no, it will cause what? Export may increase, but since India imports huge amount of essential commodity such as oil, petroleum oil, since we import huge petroleum oil, what will happen as a result of this? The import bill, because we will have to pay more price, so our import bill will increase. If there are non-essential commodities, if the price gets increased, I may not necessarily buy the product. I will wait for the time when I have to buy the product. But if the oil price has oil is something essential, okay, if we don't buy, then it will have an impact on economy, because the economy will slow down. So therefore it is something, it is so essential that it is utilized in almost every sectors of the economy. We cannot afford to purchase less oil, so it is an essential. Let's say we are purchasing the similar amount of oil. So what is happening? Yesterday I was paying 60 rupees for purchasing that oil. Today I am giving how much? 90 rupees to purchase the same oil. So my import bill has increased. Okay, and if the import bill gets increased and the export remains the same or may increase, there is the pace at which the export increases and import increases, the pace will be higher in the import when it comes to the essential items. So what happens as a result of this in a country like India? The current account deficit gets increased. Okay, when the import increases and the export remains the same or might increase somewhat, but then the import gets increased at a higher pace. So current account deficit will increase. And once the current account deficit increases, it has a multiple impact. Okay, it will have impact on the fiscal deficit, it will have impact on various other things. There are other factors. This is about the currency. Similarly, if the currency depreciation happens, the cost of loan will increase. Cost of loan will increase. All right. Why? Because earlier, loan, if I borrow $1, so in order to pay $1, I required 60 rupees at this point of time. But now I will have to pay what? 90 rupees. So my cost of the borrowing has gone up. And cost of the borrowing is total cost of the borrowing, and total borrowing is known as what? The fiscal deficit. It results into increasing the fiscal deficit of the country, right? So this is how it impacts. There are many other impact of the currency depreciation. The currency depreciation might also cause other factors, but these are the minimum things that you can understand understand because of the currency depreciation. All right. It may also cause, once the fiscal deficit increases, the investors will have less confidence in the economy and risk more in the economy. As a result, the investment will also come down in the long term. All right. So there are multiple impact, but these are the primary impact that I've shared with you. All right. The classroom student can understand that it has many other dimensions. All right. Any other question? Because this is a very interesting. The question related to this has already been asked in the prelims examination as well as mains examination. So therefore, what I want that every one of you must understand each component of our discussion. All right. So if any part of the discussion, any relationship you have not able to understand, you can ask, because I have discussed many dimensions and many relationships. All right. So I can understand if you are part of the classroom program, you must have understood, but I'm asking from others, if you have not understood any part of that, you can ask. So I'll wait for a few minutes and then we'll start the next discussion. Okay, no question. Shall we move on to the next? Let us move on to the next discussion. And the next discussion, this is a short one. So this is again the very interesting, okay, and the interesting that you can see about the geopolitics of the gas pipeline. Okay, I must tell you at this point of time, the world is divided into two major blocks. You can call it the advent of Cold War, but this is again something you can see the advent of the Cold War, and there are two divisions. One is led by the US, of course. The other is led by the Russia and China. So in the last class, we have discussed that how how this is a precarious situation for US. Why? Because US has already taken the step. What are the steps you have taken? US is already, the US Federal Reserve, we have just discussed, during the coronavirus, US Federal Reserve reduced the interest rate. As a result, the money supply gets increased in the economy. And once the money supply gets increased in the economy, the inflation, of course, it was targeting to what? It was targeting to the economic growth. Okay, this is the reason why money supply increased in the market. All right, so it was targeting to economic growth. But in the midst of recovery, okay, whenever economic growth increases because of money supply, what happens? The result of it can be seen in the rise of inflation, because inflation is corollary to the economic growth. If the economic growth increases, inflation will also increase. So what happened? As a result, as a byproduct, once the economic growth was targeting money supply increased, the inflation also get increased. But this inflation was increasing because of the demand side in the economy. It was increasing because of the demand side of the economy, because money was more in demand, and that's why inflation was rising. But in the midst of the recovery, what's happened, that the price of the oil started rising, and if the oil price gets increased, all right, the price of oil started rising. If the price of oil gets increased, it may result, this again results into the rising of inflation. If the price of oil gets increased, then it results into the inflation, and this is a supply side problem. Okay, supply side problem means what? If the constants are created for the production, then less production and the demand is higher. If the demand is higher, the price of the oil goes up. So all the countries are recovering at this point of time. So therefore, what has happened, that the OPEC countries are not increasing the production substantially, and there is a OPEC plus, in which Russia is also one of the important country. So they have not increased despite request being made by Mr. Biden. All right, the production has not increased, and once the production has not increased, the price of oil has gone up. Once the price has gone up, that has caused inflation from the supply side. Now, once the inflation increases by the demand side, US has a control on it. It can control the demand by increasing, or you can say dear money, by following the dear money policy or quantitative restriction policy that is being pursued by the Fed Reserve at this point of time. So this is under control of US. But since the inflation is rising because of the rise in price oil, this is where the game is going on, whether it is oil or gas. All right. This is where the game is going on. Now, what is the game that, in order to control the US, if the inflation remains high, in that case, it will have a huge impact on the recovery of the US economy. It will have impact on investment. It will have impact uh, on 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 the productivity in the economy. It will have impact on the outflow of money which is happening to the US. So it can hamper in a various ways. So therefore, what is happening at this point of time, that China along with Russia is creating a problem which is something which can help in increasing the oil price at this point. The the uh, you know uh, the 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 example of it can be seen that, you know uh, the OPEC plus, which includes Russia, they refuse to increase the oil production. So that's why the price is rising, and the price has gone up to $90 per barrel at this point of time. Similarly, the gas price has also increased. The second example of it can be seen. The Houthi rebels attacked on UAE, causing the production, um, or causing an effect on the production. So the production got hampered. As a result, the price again shoots up. All right. And Houthi rebels are supported by whom? Iran. Iran is an axis of US. Is an axis of China. Okay, there is a cooperation between China, Russia, and Iran. So that's the price is going up. The third channel that you can see, that Ukraine, there is a lot of hysteria that is going on, that Russia will attack on Ukraine. Now, why? Because of this hysteria, what is happening, that most of the gas supply of Russia happens through this channel, through Ukraine. And because of this hysteria, what is happening, that there is a fear, and as a result, the price of the gas and oil has gone up in the market. All right. You can expect similar kind of trends in the international world. So that's why it is saying that geopolitics of the gas pipeline, or you can say the geopolitics of the oil as well. The Russia, along with China, wants to control and wants to increase the price of oil at this point of time. It may affect China negatively, but it also give more power in the hand of more bargaining power in the hand of this arc, and more specifically, it will empower the Russia. All right, and that's why it is saying that there is a geopolitics of gas pipeline. You can say geopolitics of oil that is going on at this point of time. In this background, just try to understand there are some news, and what are the news. So has been news that controversy has been surrounded on the Nord Stream second pipeline from Russia to Germany. But more importantly, it is the European pipeline project, which is known as EstMed project, which has seen a quiet death, largely because the US has withdrawn the investment from from the European pipeline project. All right. So what is that project? Let's go into briefly, and then we'll come back to discuss this controversy. All right. So European pipeline project. So this is a pipeline project. Uh, 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 the length of this pipeline project is 1900 kilometer, and it connects the Eastern Mediterranean to the Greece. In 2013, the European Commission designated the project as a project for common interest for everyone, and it was expected that it will bring 20 billion cubic meters gas to Europe annually. Okay, and the major beneficiaries will be Greece, Italy, and other West European countries. So the length you can see in the figure itself. So the length is 1300 kilometer offshore and 600 kilometer onshore section of this project. It connects Israel from it connects the Israel to the Greece and Italy, and of course the major beneficiary of it will be the Cyprus. Okay, Cyprus is expected to get the benefit of this. So US was interested to make investment in this corridor, but now it has withdrawn largely because of the various problems, whether it is about financial, environmental, and political tensions. But before that, let us understand the significance of this project. So this project could have ensure Europe's energy security because it could have diversified the Europe's gas requirement, and uh, in fact, it could have reduced the dependency of Europe on Russia. Okay, Russia's gas projects. So that it could have done, but now since it has been withdrawn, such opportunities will be lost. It also provides an opportunity to Cyprus to merge with the European gas system. So the major beneficiaries could have been the Cyprus, but uh, the Cyprus integration of Cyprus may also affect the Turkey. So that is what the problem was, and that's why one of the important point is why it was withdrawn. That is largely because of that. It could have given a huge boost to the Cyprus as well as the Greece, because recently the Greece has seen slump in its economic growth. So it could have provided a stable gas market to these economies, especially the Greece, Italy, and Cyprus. So that is what the significance of the project. Now, US has withdrawn largely because of the fact it has cited, such as financial viability of the project. There is also environmental concerns and, of course, the political tension. It is more important. The political tension is something which is more important, okay, because it could have reduced the dependency of Europe on Russia. And Russia is continuously engaged in what? The Russia is continuously creating a conflict, okay, and it is trying to tell the Europe that the time has not yet come to reduce its dependency on Russia. So it is more about the geo economy. All right. So the financial viability, US has cited that the demand may not be very high because only few countries are there in this project, and they are not uh, they're not the countries which you can say which can provide enough finance to this project. That is one. It has also said that extraction and burning of natural gas will emit carbon dioxide and methane in the region, and therefore it may cause a rise in the greenhouse gas, especially in those regions. So that is another reason it has been cited. And the political tensions, largely because of the Cyprus inclusion of Cyprus in the project. There is a conflict on Cyprus. In Cyprus, the territory has been acquired by the Turkish by the invasion in 1974. So it is claiming a right on this project, and therefore there is a tension on this project from Turkey side. Now, what is Russia playing? Now, look at the various projects of the Russia in this map. So these are the projects. If you look at the Russia supplying the gas to the various countries, including Germany in West Europe, these are all going through Ukraine. Now you can understand why there is so much hysteria going on in Ukraine, since If the region remains destabilized, it will cause rise in the prices. All right. So these are the major projects that is going on, and this is how that Russia is supplying the gas to the Europe, whether it is Germany. What it is trying to do, alternative, it is trying to develop an alternative route, and that is known as Nord Stream 2. This is the project that is known as Nord Stream. So Russia was trying to develop this project to provide more or to sell more gas to Germany. Now Germany has withdrawn from this project at this point of time. All right. And that's another sort of conflict that is being increased. Similarly, you can see Russia is also linked with Italy. So Russia is also providing from South Stream. There is a Nord Stream, there is a South Stream. So from South Stream, it is trying to provide gas to Italy. It is also trying to provide gas to Greece. Now, what happens if the project comes into being? In that case, it will be supplied from here to the Italy and Greece this way. So that will reduce the market for Russia. All right, that is where the competition is going on. So a Russian export of gas to Europe is already going through the various pipelines. We have discussed the various pipelines that is already active. These are all active pipeline, whereas these are the pipeline which are under construction, and yes, and that is where it is going on. So these pipeline have come under increasing pressure due to US influence over Eastern Europe. All right, especially more specifically, inclusion of the various Eastern European countries into the NATO will affect the supply of this gas into the Western European countries. And this is the reason why Mr. Putin has said that the further eastward movement of NATO will bring instability in the region, because it is going to affect the gas supply of Russia into Europe, right? So that is what Russia was trying to bypass both Ukraine and Belarus, and trying to build a new pipeline by creating Nord Stream. Similarly, it has also built a relationship with China, and in the Arctic cycle, it is also providing power of Siberia pipeline. So what is the crisis that is happening? Since this project, the MEDIS project, could have been provided the gas project from this, it could have reduced the influence of Russia in these regions, and that's why the conflict has emerged. Recently, the Nord Stream project has also been closed by Germany. That has again created problem for Russia, and that's why the conflict is being raised. Now, these are the reasons, these are the various countries which are trying to become the member of NATO, and that's why it can control the supply of gas to the European countries, and that's why there has been a lot of conflict that has been raised at this point of time, right? So what is happening at this point of time at the world level? You can see it is the game plan. It is something which is about the controlling of the oil and gas supply in the world. Today, Russia has become powerful largely because of a huge amount of gas it has, and also the oil. As a result, it is in a situation to influence the world market, and that is what it is going on at this point of time. Whatever the steps that you see, whether it is about the conflict being created in Ukraine, or in West Asia, or any other part of the world, you can see it is largely because there is a tension with respect to the oil and gas. Okay, there is a conflict for controlling the oil and gas market. Oil is mostly controlled, but then China has also come up. So therefore, oil cannot be controlled by US. Russia, since the emergence of Russia in 2000, when the more oil field has been found, it has been found the Russia is seeking more role in the world politics, and that is how it has been in the process. So this is what the game plan that is going on when it comes to the world level. Now, in this circumstances, what is the role of India? Okay, of course, when it comes to India, India has no direct role when it comes to the particular project uh, that is the European pipeline project. It has nothing to do with East Med pipeline. But then for India, the project which is more relevant is Tapi. Okay, so yesterday there was a discussion on Tapi project as well with 5 Central Asian countries. So this is something which is relevant for country. This Tapi project can ensure more uh, supply of the gas to India. But here also the conflict comes more specifically because in Tapi project there is a Pakistan, so we have a problem with Pakistan. Similarly, the Afghanistan, there is a lot of challenges, insecurity and instability in Afghanistan. So the viability of such project is, of course, which is challenged. But India has resorted to go through other ways because most of the import of LPG import India does, it does through open markets by tankers, not by the pipelines. So it depends on countries like Qatar, Australia, and US for supplying the oil gas. At the same time, it is trying to diversify, and in order to diversify the market, it has made various investment in Russia for the petrocarbon extraction. So therefore, India is going to get benefit from the Russia's extraction. So India has a huge connection when it comes to getting the gas from Russia at a cheaper cost. So India can hardly afford to make any comment when it comes to the projects which is going on in the conflict which is going on in Europe, right? So that is how the role of India comes in. India has EastMed has nothing to do with India, but then for India, the relevance is related to the Tapi project and for other projects in Russia, right? So this is how we have understood about the game plan, the gas game plan that is going on into the US. So the geopolitics of gas pipeline. So these are the things that we have taken. We can go on and understand the other parts of the gas pipeline as well, but let us restrict this discussion to this. Got the point? So the geopolitics of gas pipeline, have you understood what is going on at this point of time and what else we need to understand? Anything more you want to understand? Any part of the discussion you have not able to get? You can please.
Excuse me, sir. Can you explain once again the India's role? The last part once again.
No direct role in this one, but the gas pipeline project, yes, of course, or gas geopolitics of gas pipeline, of course, then there is active role. No direct role with the particular project that is estimate, but then it has a huge role when it comes to the global gas pipeline projects. Okay, it has no direct relation with the project that I'm mentioning, but it has, because India is among the countries which requires gas. It is among the top 5 countries which are importing gas from other countries. So we have to rely on those countries which are supplying the gas to India. At the same time, we need to diversify the market. As we have diversified the oil market today, India's dependency on the OPEC country has reduced to merely 42%. All right, that is something we need to achieve in the gas project as well. We cannot depend on only Qatar, Australia, or US. We need to find out more suppliers, and here the role of the Russia comes in. Here the role of role of the Central Asian countries also comes in. But the problem is there is a lot of instability in Afghanistan and Pakistan. As a result, we are not able to play active role when it comes to the pipeline project, okay, gas pipeline project. But of course, we depend on this. Is the reason we depend on the tanker way, all right? If the gas pipeline project, if India could connect the Tapi, that could be extended to the Russia as well. So that could help India to get the gas at a cheaper price. But that is the problem comes from various sides. So there is a huge geopolitics and geoeconomics that is going on in when it comes to the gas pipeline or oil pipeline at this point. Yes. This question you were asking particular individual. Yes, Dinesh, you were asking anything specific that you want to ask in this slide?
No, sir. Actually, I was a little bit confused between this Tapi. So now I got
Yes.
the point.
Yes. Tapi is something where we have interest. Okay. Okay. So if you don't have any other question, we can move on to the next discussion. Any question? Okay, let's move on to the, okay, so brief information about the Tapi pipeline. Okay, so very brief, it is Tapi stands for Turkmenistan, A for Afghanistan, P for Pakistan, and I for India. So the Tapi project is expected to link the Fazilika natural gas station from in India to the Galkisnas gas field in Turkmenistan. All right, this is expected to deliver 33 billion cubic meters of natural gas per year to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. And these are the countries which are deficient in the natural gas. They could greatly they could get benefit from the Tapi project. But since Pakistan, Pakistan in Pakistan you cannot expect you cannot expect a government which works on a logics or especially on the economic logics. So the expectation from this project is very less. At the same time, there is a lot of instability in Afghanistan, and the influence of China has continuously increased in Afghanistan. As a result, the road ahead is not so bright when it comes to Tapi pipeline. But of course, we should hope that in the future we can create such scenarios where we can bring together to get this project. This project can further extend it to Russia as well. All right, so this is connected. So that's how, if the Tapi gets completed, then it will be a great help for India. But then there is a problem. Okay, this can also be channelized if it can be moved, and India has also looked at other alternatives. So connecting it through Iran, but then there is a conflict when it comes to Iran. The influence of China has increased, and at the same time, there is a conflict with the US. So in case of Iran, it is not possible at this point of time. In case of Afghanistan, because of others in a controlled situation, we will have to wait. And with Pakistan, we will have to wait for the time when it will have some logical government to think beyond the geostrategy and go to discuss the geoeconomic issues. All right. So this is about the Tapi pipeline project. Let's move on to the next, and that is the retrospective tax rate. Retrospective tax rate disputes. Sorry for this mistake. How it would go if it goes through the POK in Afghanistan? I don't think it will go through a POK. This will not go through the POK. Let me look at the POK stands here. This is the reason POK. It is going through this one, southern part of Pakistan. All right. So this is not connected to the POK. POK, there is another project that is going on. Okay, this is going on. The project CPEC, where we have conflict with the project. All right. So that is going through POK. It will not go through the POK. Okay. Got that point, Rahul? So this Topi project is not going through the POK. It is CPEC that is sent. CPEC that is going through that one, right? So therefore, there is no connection of this project with the with the POK. What is the place name in Fazlika? Fazlika in Punjab. FAZLIK, Fazlika in Punjab. Okay, let's move on to the next concept, and that is again the one major dispute, that is retrospective tax dispute. This has come into discussion earlier as well, but now that has already been settled. The issue has been settled between the CAN and the government of India. So therefore, it has again come into discussion. No question has been asked. It was expected to be asked in this examination, in the mains examination, but no question has been asked. So therefore, we should continue to pursue this this issue. This is an important part, and this is important for bringing more confidence to the investors in India's growth story. All right. So this retrospective tax dispute that was brought into India by the Finance Act 2012 by Mr. Pranav Mukherjee. All right, and it was since then it was considered as something which forced India to look back. Okay, so it was something which is considered as a backward step in India's growth story, because it was not the time. Today it's not the time when you put the kind of things that you brought during the period of 1942 1991. So during that point of time, there was a lot of controversy, there was a lot of conflict within the government, and finally the government of India has done away with this retrospective tax dispute, and the cases has been settled under this dispute. So in this context, let us try to understand what is retrospective tax dispute, what are the various cases, and so on. Okay. So recently, the CAN Energy, there were two cases, one with a Vodafone and the second was a CAN Energy. So it has concluded all the steps which was prescribed by the government of India in order to get the money back. All right. So it is expected to get 7,900 crore rupees, which was imposed at one point of time due to retrospective tax laws introduced in the Finance Bill to 2012. So what happens? Retrospective tax dispute. So this retrospective tax, it imposes tax on something that concluded way back in let's say 10 years way back, 30 years way back. So some development that has been taken place, let's say 30 years back. And today you are saying that I will impose the tax on those agreement. Let's say there are two companies. These two companies have merged together. Whatever be the way, now after 30 years or 10 years, you are saying I will impose tax on those merger. So that is known as a retrospective tax. So imposing tax in retrospective, perspective, right? That is known as a retrospective tax. So a transaction that took place prior to the law being framed. Now, this is something which creates huge uncertainty. Why? Because uh, now there is no certainty for the investors, okay, to conclude any agreement with the country. Let's say the investors has concluded an agreement with the parties, and tomorrow once it makes investment in the country, it realizes the government of India has imposed certain tax on it. So that is something which create huge that is something which is completely against the confidence building measures with the investors in the country. And this is what happened during the period of 2013-14. You can see there was a sudden outflow of foreign investment from our country, and India, the impact of it can be seen in the form of the currency depreciation in the country. All right, and as a result, we have gone for when Mr. Raghuram Rajan came into become the governor, he introduced the FCNR, and through FCNR we got the dollar and we could control the situation. All right, this is largely because of the kind of tax that was introduced by the Finance Act 2012. So under this act, the government was allowed it allowed the government to impose tax on merger and acquisition that happened before 2012. So in fact, it aimed to bring past the indirect transfer of Indian assets under the ambit of taxation. So two cases were uh, there when it comes to the retrospective tax. So one case was related to the Vodafone. What happened that this Vodafone, this is of course a UK based company, it bought a 60% stake, because during that point of time India was going through telecom revolution, and so therefore UK wanted to participate in India's growth story. So it bought a 60% stake in the previous company that used to be known as Hutchinson at a cost of 11 billion dollar. But what happened in this, that under this you know agreement, the transfer of the money was done in the foreign land. So therefore they avoided paying taxes to the government of India, because it was said that the agreement has not been completed in India and the transfer has been done. Let's say there is a Vodafone, that is a foreign company, and Hutchinson is also a foreign company, though it is operating in India, but this is a foreign company, and they are exchanging their shares. Let's say Hutchinson is selling its shares to the UK company, okay, Vodafone. So the agreement has completed in the foreign land, and the Indian government said, look, whatever the agreement has happened in other countries, that will also come under the taxation. That is what it is. It was mentioned under the retrospective tax when it comes to the Vodafone case. So if you look at the Income Tax Act and other tax act, before the equalization levy, the Tax Act, usually we impose the tax on the basis of the physical presence of anyone. If the agreement has been completed in India, it was liable to get the tax. It was liable to pay taxes to the government. Since it has not been completed in India, so therefore the companies were arguing that they are not required to pay taxes to the government. Finance Act ensures that that comes under the taxation of the country, all right, because it was a transaction of Indian assets in the foreign countries. That is what the problem was, and therefore the Indian government raised a demand for 7990 crore in capital gains tax. the matter reached to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court also gave the verdict in favor of the Vodafone, and saying that it could not be taxed retrospectively. Right. So that was going on. In fact, it was challenged in the international court also. All right, and that gave a bad name to India, and especially most importantly, the investors were shied away from making investment in the country after that. Now, when the country realized that it is giving a bad name to the country, so this is the last thing that this is the thing that has been done away with. And recently, the government of India introduced the bill which ends this retrospective taxation act. Similar case was occurred with the Cairn Energy also. It was asked to pay 10,247 crore in 2014 because of its move, or because of its move in 2006. All right, this is again a retrospective. So you are imposing something which has happened, which is completed in 2006. So in such circumstances, will there be any investors who will have confidence in the economy, because they can be subject to tax at any given point of time. So that's why it was challenged, and in fact, the Cairn Energy said that it is something which is the violation of India-UK bilateral investment treaty, and it was challenged in the Permanent Court of Arbitration, which India refused to accept. But lastly, it was realized, and the government of India brought the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 2021. Under this one, it aims to return the money which it has collected through the retrospective tax to the parties. So it was introduced to nullify the retrospective tax clause introduced in 2012. Under this one, any tax demand made on transaction that took place before May 12 shall be dropped. The tax collected shall be repaid without interest. That is something that is mentioned. And at the same time, it will also expect the parties to drop all the cases against the government of India. And that is what it has been mentioned under the amendment laws. It is going to benefit India hugely. Why? Because first of all, it will bring back the confidence of the investor in India. At the same time, the companies like the Cairn Energy and Vodafone will directly get benefited, in the sense that money will be released to them. So these companies already facing huge uncertainty, so that they will be able to revive their companies, and it will also simplify the tax process in the country, and it will also help the ease of doing business in the country. All right. So these are the dispute when it comes to the retrospective tax and the taxation laws that has been introduced to end the retrospective tax in the country. All right. So these are the various provisions that we have seen with respect to the retrospective taxes. Anything that you want to ask, any part of this you could not understand, you can please raise. Anyone has a doubt, you can please raise the question if you have not understood any part of the discussion. So if everyone has understood, please say yes. Then we can move on to the next concept or next topic. All right. Okay. So let us move on to the next concept or the next issue, and that is star rating for faster clearance to project. Okay, so there is a discussion of environmental impact assessment. So a star rating has been proposed by the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in order to give a faster clearance to the projects. This has come under the criticism by the various environmental experts in the country, citing that it will violate or compromise the norms set under the environmental impact assessment. At the same time, the government of India has made response that such faster approval or clearances of the project is required in order to go for uh, giving a pace to infrastructure creation in the country and uh, avoiding any delay in completion of the project. All right. So in this context, let us try to understand what it has been suggested under the star rating, how it is going to affect the environmental impact assessment, and what are the other controversies surrounding this. Let us try to understand in this one. But before going into this issue, we will take a short break, and then after the break, we will discuss the rest of the issues uh, that that are required to discuss. All right. So let's take a small break of 10 minutes. It's 7:41. We will meet at 7:51 to discuss the rest of this. Is it all right to everyone? Okay, then we will meet at 7:51. Welcome back to everyone. So let us discuss about the next issue without making any delay. So we were discussing about the background of this star rating. Let us discuss what is there in the issue. So recently, as I said, the Union Ministry of Environment has proposed a plan to implement the star rating system in the environmental impact assessment. And for this, the Union Cabinet has already made a meeting, and this was expected to enhance the ease of doing business in the country. Uh, under this proposal, the industrial projects would be like speeding of the industrial projects will be done, and for that uh, uh, the the clearances, how quickly the clearances is made by the state environmental impact assessment authority, uh, that is what it will be seen under this one. However, it has come under the discussion, and it has faced huge criticism, as it is suggesting that it is going to compromise the basic principle of environmental regulation. So let us try to understand in this context what is environmental impact assessment, and then we'll move on to understand other things. Okay, about the star, uh, uh, the proposal that has been made by the ministry. So environmental impact assessment, any project that is any project which is going to be implemented, or infrastructure projects, or any project that has to be implemented in the country, there is a one thing that is required, that environmental the environmental impact, what will be its impact on the environment, that is checked under the environmental impact assessment. So it's a tool to identify the environmental, social, and economic impact of a project before making a decision. It was introduced in the year 1978 with respect to the River Valley project. Later, it was given a statutory backing and brought it under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. Objective is to predict the environmental impact at an early stage of the planning of the projects. Okay, so that such impact could be neutralized, or such impact could be minimized. It also aims to shape the project to suit the local environment and respect the local environment. It also aims to present the predictions and options to decision makers. So overall, it is going to going to benefit the economy by way of reducing the cost, reducing time for project implementation, and avoid cleanup costs in the country. All right. So this is why the environmental impact assessment is done with all the projects. Later on, what has happened, that we will come into this one, but let us see the process of the environmental impact assessment. So it goes through the mainly 7 process. So there is a screening of the project, then there is a scoping of the project, then assessment is done, and then reporting on the environmental impact assessment, review and environmental impact statement, and then the decision, and lastly the monitoring of the project is done. So you can see the project here also. So initially the screening is done, whether the project requires full or partial in impact assessment study. That is what the screening is done, and then the initial environment examination done. And once it is there are some projects which are not required some sort of any environmental impact assessment, some projects which requires partial environmental impact assessment. If it requires, then the scoping is done. Here the potential impact of the project is assessed. It also helps in identifying the alternative, the mitigation or compensation cost, impacts of these on the various biodiversity is what what is examined. Then full scale environmental impact assessment is done. Then the review is done. A review is done for the particular project. So detailed elaboration of the project is done. It is also looked at whether what are the alternatives available, and once the alternative available regarding that, the project is prepared, and that is and again the terms of reference are decided by the public authority, and then the decision is made. Okay, so with this, once the decision is made, if it is approved, then then the monitoring of the project will be done, and then the auditing and evaluation of the project is done. So there is a continuous process of any project to look at its impact on the environment. That is what it is checked under the environmental impact assessment. All right, so this is what the procedure with respect to the environment impact assessment can be seen. This is an important topic for paper one. Such question can be asked in the paper one, and it has already been asked. Now, what the star rating system proposed by the ministry, it suggests that it will rate the state agencies on the basis of the rank and on the basis of the fact that how quickly and efficiently they can accord the environmental clearances. For that, a star rating system has been developed by the ministry, and it has developed the 7 criteria to measure the performance of the state environmental impact assessment authority. Factors such as how quickly the environment clearances is granted, the site visits, percentage of the environmental clearance proposals disposed within 6 months, efficiency, and other things that are considered. On a scale of 7, so the more points will be awarded if the clearances is given within 80 days of the project. Similarly, extra point will also be granted for bringing for other points, bringing efficiency in the system. So this is what it has been rated. Now, the people, it is expected to challenge, or it is expected to create a lot of conflict. Why? Because the rating will be done by the central agency. So that is creating one challenge regarding the autonomy of the state environment impact assessment authority. The other factor is that if the days are given for 18 days, so it is also being criticized that that the principles of environmental impact assessment is not being respected. So these are various kinds of criticism is being made. All right. So how this star rating system will affect the environmental impact assessment? One thing is that since there are already very few independent environmental experts in the state committees, and which leave the decision to make by the bureaucrats, and bureaucrats have a tendency to neglect the environmental concern. That is because they focus more on the economic dividend rather than the environmental dividend, and already they are they have speeded up the process because the decisions are made by them, not by the environmentalists. So that is already under challenged. That's why it is this will further create more pressure on the environmental experts to pass the project on a speedy basis. This is also something which is violative of the provisions of the Environment Protection Act. Okay, so that is how it is going to affect. It also makes the state agency, the State Environmental Impact Assessment Agency, as a rubber stamp to the center. Which affects their autonomy. So that is something which is considered as a compromise on the federal principle as well. Another is that it undermines the role of regulatory oversight in environmental protection program, which has already been highlighted by the Supreme Court as one of the instruments to ensure the right to life. The scheme might also lead to unhealthy competition among the state to give speedy clearance of the project, right? So these are how it is going to affect the environmental impact assessment. There are other steps along with this. There are other steps that have been taken recently which undermine the environmental regulation. Now, at one point of time in 2009, when there was a minister, Jayanti Natarajan was the minister in the environment ministry, and there was a lot of cases, a lot of criticism against that particular ministry that the project has been delayed because of tight environmental impact assessment done by the ministry, and therefore the loss of interest by the investors can be seen, and huge amount of the pending cases, pending projects were there with the ministry. So therefore, in light of that, when the current regime came into power, so they tried to speed up the process, and as part of this, they have again introduced a star system for speeding up the process. All right. So already there are some recent steps taken which are undermining the environmental regulation. For example, extension of the deadline for compliance with the emission norms. There is a dilution of the coastal regulatory zone. All right. So that is also something which is going to affect the coastal zones, and in fact the diversity, the biodiversity in the coastal areas will get affected due to this. There is also a proposed amendment to the Forest Conservation Act. At the same time, the average time taken to issue environmental clearances has also reduced by a significant margin in the last 2 years, which is also affecting the detailed scrutiny of the environmental impact assessment. All right. So in light of this, it is being alleged that the government is compromising the basic principles of environment, whereas on the one hand, it is making uh, claims for zero emission reduction in the country, zero emission target by 2070. It is making several attempts to promote the clean energy in the country, whereas on the other hand, it is compromising the environmental factors in the various projects in the country. All right. So these are the various criticism that is made with the project. Apart from that, the environmental impact assessment is already facing problem because of lack of participation from the people. So not many people are aware with the environmental impact assessment. So the participation of the people are extremely low. The monitoring is also very low in the country. So weak monitoring is already affecting the environmental factors in the projects. There are many instances where it has been compromised. The applicability has also impact, and there are many exemptions which have been notified by the government. As a result, you can see the applicability of environmental impact assessment is very low in the country. For example, you can see the sand mining. In case of sand mining, the environmental impact assessment is compromised. Similarly, the quality of environmental impact assessment has also affected. The report which is generated, that has also affected largely because of the fact that not enough independent experts are being appointed in the um, in the body, as well as the detailed scrutiny is avoided in order to speed up the process. However, the ministry has made some responses. The ministry is uh, is is making response that its intention is not to hasten the clearance. Rather, it is saying that acceleration, there's a need to accelerate the pace of the decision making in the ministry, and that's why they have brought such star system of ranking. It will also allow the state not to send and resend the various objections on the projects. Rather, sending the various objection at once will help in speeding up the process. At the same time, it wants the independent experts to make quick decision making, and therefore it will ensure benefits not only to the state but also to the government. And and that's how the faster clearances will help the industry to move faster, and at the same time the infrastructure project will also get a pace. Remember, there are many instances when Mr. Gadkari has highlighted the lack of clearances of the various projects in the various government. You must have seen one of the famous video of Mr. Gadkari having a conversation with Mr. uh, Chief Minister of Jharkhand, and where he was asking for the clearances of the project. All right. So that is a kind of situation that you can see is happening. And in fact, after 2009, because of the various PPP projects, such clearances has been delayed, and which has affected the economic dividend in the long term in the country. So that's why, as part of the ease of doing business, the government is willing to accelerate the pace of decision making and to accelerate the pace of the project implementation of the country. All right. But it's important to understand that the environmental impact assessment is important, and any project must go through the detailed scrutiny of the various projects. So in order to make the environmental impact assessment more effective, there is a need to establish a national accreditation body for carrying out environmental impact assessment. The function must be there must be a centralized baseline data bank that must be prepared, and a detailed scrutiny and monitoring should be done by these independent agencies. Since today, this the environmental impact assessment is done by the state agencies, and mostly it is dominated by the bureaucrats. So therefore, that is the scrutiny is compromised, and that's why it is suggested that we need to create an independent agency in order to carry out the environmental impact assessment process. There's also need to build the capacity of the human resources in order to carry out the environmental impact assessment. The quality of environmental impact assessment has gone down in the country, largely because of lack of human resources, and at the same time lack of capacity among the functionaries to carry out the function. There is also one of the important concept that has been developed, that we must promote strategic environment assessment. So instead of going to detail, we must also focus on a strategic environment assessment. So this will also help in choosing a project to better evaluate. So we must also focus on the strategic environment assessment. In fact, it has already reflected in the National Environment Policy 2006. So that's what we need to look at. In fact, the part of the projects can be divided into various subgroups, and the part of the projects must be allowed to complete before simultaneously the other process of environment impact assessment can be done with the other projects. All right. So that is what it has been suggested. There is also need to have robust and inclusive public hearing. The public participation is required in this process, and that will be done only when we will have a robust system of public hearing. right? So this is what we need to do in order to enhance the impact or enhance the uh, uh, enhance the environmental consideration of the various projects. All right, system or the star rating which has been increased, which has been proposed by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, must look at must be intended uh, to ensure that the principle of environment is not compromised, and at the same time the speedy disposal or speedy approval of the process is also done. All right, so it is it it is something where we need to uh, we need to strike a balance between the environmental need and at the same time the economic dividend a project can ensure in the country. All right, that is what it is required under the system. All right, so we have discussed about the environmental impact assessment. The question has already been asked about the environmental impact assessment. The question was asked about the environmental impact assessment and the difference between the environmental impact assessment and the strategic environmental assessment. All right, now such question has already been asked, so I would advise you to go into the detail of this one. You must prepare this question for writing in the mains examination as well. All right, so this is what we have discussed about the star rating system. Now there is another project, there is another important issue, and that is related to economy, and that is India's economy and the challenges of informality. So you must have seen that the informal sector, there is a significant rise of informal sector in the economy, and at the same time there are enough efforts being made by the government to to increase the formalization of the economy. So recent steps such as GST, digitization push by the government, demonetization, these are all aimed at uh, aimed at uh, formalization of the economy. But then uh, the coronavirus has affected this process, and in fact it has further caused a rise in informality of the economy, right? So in this context it becomes important for us to understand the what is the formal sector of the economy, what are the benefits of the formal sector of the economy, why the informal sector is growing, and what are the challenges, and so many things. All right, so let us discuss about the India's growing informal sector during the coronavirus period and India's push for the formalization of the economy. So yes, in the last few years, the government of India had made several steps, whether it is the goods and service tax, digitization of the financial transaction through the RuPay card, or through uh, you know uh, through through the Bhim app. All right, and also the enrollment of informal sector workers on the government portal through eSevanam. All these efforts are aimed at formalization of the economy. All right, so these are the efforts being made by the government, but the with the coronavirus, this informalization of the economy has gone up, largely because of the fact that in the country there is a lack of job security, there is absence of social security benefits given to the many people. There is a lot of issues related to the tax evasion, and as a result there is a huge rise of the the informal sector is going on in the economy. Now if the government wants to ensure a healthy economic growth in the country, it must look at the ways through which this informal size of the economy can be converted into the formal sector. Right? They can this informal economy can be brought into the formal sector of the economy. All right. Only then it can see that only then it can see a rise of economic growth. Only then it can realize the dream of achieving a $5 billion economy by 2025. So, what are the informal sector? What are the disadvantages of the informal sector? Let us try to understand that, and then we will come to discuss the ways to formalize the economy. So, informal economy, an informal economy represents the economy which represents those enterprises and the people which are not registered, where employers do not provide social security benefits to the employees. In fact, if you look at India, in India, 90% of workers are remained in the informal sector, and these are the people that are under the various kinds of disadvantages, such as a lack of social security benefits and so on. In fact, according to the various reports, such as periodic labor force survey, that data suggests that 75% of the informal workers are self-employed in the economy. They are casual wage workers. Like you can see, there is a rise of gig workers in the economy. Okay, and that with the rise of these internet-based company, the rise of gig-based worker and the rise of informal economy is in fact going up in the economy, right? Because these people are not getting any social security benefits. So that is something which is a problematic. In fact, the new sort of economy that is being created, that is also not helping to create good jobs in the economy, rather than they are contributing to further informalization of the economy. In fact, according to ILOs, if you look at the data, it suggests that merely 9.47% of the population is under the formal jobs. Okay, the formal workers share in India's total workforce remains only 9.7%. Means what? 90% of the population remained in informal sector in the economy. All right. So there is a need for formalization of the economy, and these people needs to get the benefit of the social security benefits by way of government's various by way of government's policies and so on. So the formalization is required largely because the formal sector is more productive, in the sense it provides social security benefits to to the workers. It helps in regularizing the jobs. It helps in creating the good jobs in the economy. Okay, and it also helps in having a career progression for the people in the formal sector. So therefore, most of the people in India doesn't, if they're working in informal sector, they don't have a career job. The career progression is not linked. A regular skill development is not happening. As a result, they remain they remain uh, uh, disadvantageous situation in the labor market. All right. So in order to have a robust labor market in the country, we need to provide social security to the people working in the informal sector. We must incentivize the companies to bring those people under the social security benefits. It also suggests that if the people are there in the informal employment, it suggests that people there is a lack of adequate growth in the country, and this is also the continuation of underdevelopment of the country. As a result, the progress cannot be seen in the people. It will also reduce the poverty impact of the poverty elevation on the country. So in order to do so, we need to move to the formalization of the economy. But the challenge has also increased largely because of the various kinds of problems that has come, especially when it comes to the coronavirus. So coronavirus, according to an report, according to a report prepared by the Oxfam, this report suggests that in 2020 alone, 122 million people lost their jobs, and 75% of them were in the informal sector. So, in fact, the coronavirus affected the poor people more. It is the poor people who suffered more. Why? Because in the informal sector, since they are lacking the skills, that they have not adopted the digitization, and that's why they got affected in this process. Whereas the formal sector could adopt the digitization, and the people more engaged, the highly skilled people are there in the services sector. As a result, the formal sector has not seen the shrinking of the loss of employment. Rather, its more impact can be seen in the informal sector. It also affects the informalization also affects the economy. Why? Because most of the employees that are there in the informal sector, they don't pay taxes to the government. As a result, the revenue gets suffered. At the same time, the businesses also, they are not regulated, and therefore they also avoid taxing, avoid making paying taxes to the government. So that's why it is suggested that if the government of India is going for formalization of the economy, it will be a huge boost for the economy. Why? The people, in fact, more importantly, it is the tax revenue of the government that will increase. We have seen this impact with the implementation of GST. With the implementation of GST and BHIM, or online transaction, that has greatly helped in formalization of the economy. It has a multiple benefit as well. All right. So that is one thing. So these are the reasons why we need to go for formalization. But the problem is that when it comes to the formalization, there are many legal and regulatory hurdles. And these hurdles are holding back the formalization process in the economy. In fact, the various efforts that have been made by the government of India, so these efforts have not produced enough result. Look at the MSME, the definition of MSME that has been given by the government. So under this one, every company is trying to show its less income because there is a benefit of being small. All right, so that they can get the benefit of the various policies of the government. So instead of incentivizing the enterprises to get regulated or become the part of the formal sector, they are getting the benefit. They are getting the incentives not to get formalized in the economy, right? Because once the enterprise will get regularized, in that case they will have to pay taxes to the government. So therefore they have incentives not to get regularized, and then they can save their taxes. All right. So far the various efforts have been made by the government, but these efforts have shown the very limited results. All right. So that is what it has been suggested. In fact, the government has also made some effort and has provide some incentives to the companies if they are providing some social security benefit to their employees. See, such schemes have already been introduced in in the textile and other sectors. So that is what we need to do. We need to promote those things in the economy to enhance the formalization of the economy. So what are the other things that we need to do in order to promote formalization of the economy? we also need to we need to do both the things. One is incentivization, second is a penalization. So as part of the incentives, we must provide the financial support for formalization of the economy. For example, if somebody is paying taxes, so if somebody is paying regular taxes to the government, if somebody is adopting the online transactions, in that case such transaction must be linked with their ability uh, to access to the finance. Okay, and it is expected that the government will take some steps in order to enhance the credit availability to the people. So such steps must be taken so as to incentivize the people or enterprises to become formal in the economy. There is also need to strengthen the micro, small, and medium enterprises. For that, they must be provided some incentives with respect to the employment generation, adoption of the technology, and adopting the online transactions and GST and so on. That will greatly help to enhance the size of formalization of the economy. At the same time, education, investment in skilling is something which is required so that more number of workers join the formal sectors of the economy. They must be in situation to get the various benefits which are announced by the governments as part of the social security benefits of the scheme of the government. Apart from that, it is suggested that the government should look at simplifying the registration process. It is something which is very complicated, and this is the reason why micro, small, and medium enterprises are avoiding to register themselves, are avoiding to become the formal sectors of the economy. So we must focus on simplifying the registration process, simplifying the process of making the formal companies, easing rules of business conducts. Labor laws must be liberalized so that more and more enterprises come up to become the formal sectors or become the part of the formal sectors of the economy. The regulatory framework must be strengthened. The steps like digitization, push for digitization, such as Beam app and like the fintech, or providing linking Aadhaar with these aggregators, financial sector aggregators, will greatly help to incentivize the people to be part to do the transaction, or enterprise to do the transaction, uh, to do the transaction in the formal sector. All right, so this kind of steps will greatly help in strengthening the formal sectors of the economy. These are the steps that we need to take in order to enhance more formalization of the economy. More formalization will greatly help to increase the size of the GDP, even though the production is happening in the economy. But since these are the things which are not come under the taxation, as a result, the GDP, even though production happens, but GDP looks smaller in the country, because the definition of GDP itself restrict to include all the production that is done in the country. All right, so even though government of India doesn't make any significant step other than the governance, yet the formalization of the economy itself will help the economy to grow in size. All right, this is what this article is emphasizing on, and uh, this is what we have discussed. All right, so this is the questions on formalization and informalization sometimes asked in the examination. So please look at this component, And there has been a lot of effort and push by the government to ensure more formalization of the economy. Now, anything that you want to ask, and anything if you have not understood as part of this discussion, you can please raise your question. Okay, so what we have done, we have taken some issues which can be asked in the mains examination. So most of the issues have have its relation with the mains examination. All right. Now, the next week, of course, there will be significant development when it comes to the economy, and the budget will be presented. At the same time, the economic survey will also publish on Monday. So you can surely expect more number of issues that that we will be covering in the next session. All right. So if you have any question with regard to today's discussion, you can still raise any part of the discussion. If you have not understood, you can raise your question. If you have question, we will discuss. Otherwise, we will wrap up today's discussion. Anyone has a question? Okay. So what we will do, we will wrap up today's discussion. Next week we will take rest of the issues, and of course there will be a lot more issues when it comes to the economy. All right. Thank you for your participation.